so that at the end of the day, even we've had some of them who have died even after being rescued because they did not want to go back to taking their regular meals. Now, it's very, very important and prudent for us when you're engaging in a spiritual fast to make sure we engage ourselves or expose ourselves to the right material. What do I mean? That is why, from every kind of religion that you're involved in, if you fast and you do not pray and you do not read the word, then that means you could be on hunger strike and you could be even exposing yourself into a spiritual realm that could be even defective. And that is why it's prudent for all of us when engaging in a spiritual fast, especially if we are Christians, to make sure that you read the word and you pray the right kind of prayers. Because it's very, very easy for you to be manipulated or for you to get to different kind of wavelengths in the spiritual realm, and you find yourself being derailed even from your faith. And that is why you hear even at times guys who come up and say funny things about what God has told them. And when you try to align the same with what we call the guideline for our faith, which is the Bible, you find that at times they are very far off from that mark. Why? Your brain is very active. Your brain is very receptive. And that is why, if you want to understand what I'm talking about, when you listen to some kind of news or music once or twice or thrice, at times, even if it's not a song that you like, you find yourself singing it. Like now, what's trending? Apart from the Chahola, I think what's trending in the Kikuyu news is that Kasong and Yondoishi. So, either Bjorn, so you find yourself like you're walking along the road and you find somebody singing the same kind of a song because they've been exposed to it. So in the spiritual realms, because that is what has been released, you find so many people are doing the same kind of stuff. And you remember even like this other song which was trending, and you're asking yourself why it was trending. And it stopped all of a sudden, where you find that this guy was just singing, alafu naanguka pap, falling every other place. So anyway, let me not go there, but I think you understand what I'm trying to talk about. So whatever you expose yourself to, you'll grow in it. And that is why you find even some musicians, they try to do the same. Sikia kwanza jamaa alienda pahali akajifungia, wakati anatoka huko ndio anakuja kurelease a specific kind of song because he has sensed what people are sensing within the spiritual realms, na anakuja na release, inakuwa a hit. So you need to look at it from that particular perspective. But please, because this I did, the research I was doing, I did for our very own sake. So that you really realize that when you expose yourself to a fast and you are seeking spiritually, it's very easy for you to be manipulated when you are not well aligned to the beliefs you are, you believe in. It's very easy for you to be manipulated. So, and you see, the other thing I would want to say is that, yes, I've also done theology. It's also good for us to make sure that we don't just look at the Bible from one particular verse. You look at the Bible from a context, not from a verse. You look at the Bible from the spirit of the Bible, not from what you think a specific individual is saying. So I want to leave it at that for the time being, so that at least if we have any questions, we can be able to address them and even have like a discussion to know how we can be able to help ourselves, help our children, help the community around to know how to deal with this thing of fasting and spiritual manipulation. So I want to stop there for the time being. Then we can be able to have a discussion on the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. for the wonderful presentation. I'm sure that all of us have learned something or some few things which we didn't know. And as you have said, at this juncture, it can be very good if we can have a discussion. I'm sure at the back of our minds, some of us have some questions, but maybe fear to ask. So I would like to request, let us be very free. Let us ask the questions and we have a discussion. And if not a discussion, the daktari will answer the question. Kindly press your hands icon to see, and I'll give you an opportunity to ask a question. Hello.
Bwana Douglas, let me take this opportunity to let me jump in real quick. And before anybody else, as the rest are preparing to ask their questions, I'll just direct a question to Daktari. You mentioned about the ketones. Personally, I've had it being mentioned severally, and I've seen it being written and talked about literature about it, about ketones. But you mentioned it being the best kind of energy for the brain, right? Is it possible for you to expound a bit on it and elaborate about the ketones a bit more before we proceed? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'll elaborate on it in a while. Any other person with that? Either question?
Yes, I can see Kevin. Kevin Wamura, you can proceed. Kevin, you can proceed and ask the question.
I was turning my mic on. I wanted to know how the body is able to differentiate that one is fasting for spiritual reasons and fasting, or rather what the doctor said, starving. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Any other so that Daktari can answer the questions?
Thank you.
Yes, I can see Ashford. Ashford, kindly proceed.
Yes, thank you, Panamwere and Daktari. The topic is very interesting and good. And Daktari told us that you can the body starts functioning very well from the that day onwards. I'm wondering how far can one go safely? How far?
Hello, anybody else? Thank you,
Thank you.
Ashford.
Now,
I think, Daktari, you can proceed from there. But maybe I also have is it, I don't know whether it's a comment or a question
thank you.
on spiritual aspect. You stated that whatever we feed our mind with
Mhm.
really affect us in a way, especially when it comes to the spiritual fasting. Is it that when we are not careful, we may find ourselves speaking of things that are somehow heretical, or they are not from God? Anybody else? Okay, maybe Daktari, I think you can you can answer the
Thank you.
questions and
Now,
maybe
let
even have a small
me start.
discussion as you direct us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me start with the first question about uh, uh, ketones. Now, ketones are mainly byproducts, protein being broken down. I mean, that when it comes to blood, they are similar, they have benefits than glucose. Implied, but not necessarily mentioned, that even when you look at most of the sacrifices that were made in the past, when you read the Bible, and even when you look at the African tradition religion, most of the sacrifices that were made were mainly from animals, shedding of blood and all that, them eating the meat. Very little we talk about seeds and sugary stuff or starch. Now, looking at it from that particular perspective, then it allows you to think about on those particular lines. Now, sugar, or rather the byproducts of protein and fat, is what now, when the protein and fats are down, is when you get the ketones. And I've said that is what the brains prefer as a main source of energy. Now, when you have sugar, I think you've had so many things about the negative effects of sugar, especially in children. You've heard about even people talking about the sugar rush. You find children when they have taken something like ice cream or sugary stuff or cake, they take too long to sleep. They are all over, and at times they become a little bit out of control because of excess energy. But protein energy or ketones, it's quite the opposite. This one happens slowly. It's digested. It's like when you're using gas and when you're using what else? Something like charcoal. Charcoal sustains its heat for a longer time than gas. Gas you can be able to turn and off. So it's something that stays in the system for a little bit longer, but it's utilized slowly. Even when it comes to concentration, the person when the brain is using ketones lasts a little bit longer than when they're using sugar or glucose. And you also need to differentiate between glucose, just sugar, but sugar from fruits, which is quite different from sugar from starch, or yes, which is very, very different, which usually is turned into glucose per se. But fructose is sugar from fruits, and it has its